Hello everyone and welcome back to the next episode of the Road to Feed the Master series. This is the last round of the Prague Open, a long game, so I don't want to make any longer introduction. Let's jump straight into the game, in which I got the worst possible pairing. Why? Because as you may know if you are a tournament player, in the last rounds there are always some shenanigans happening in terms of pairings, colors, opponents and whatnot. So even though I had white pieces in the previous round, I knew that the chances of me repeating color are high. On top of that, there were a few grandmasters that I could have been paired with, rated around 2450. So, jokingly, you may call them clients. At least this is something that my coach used to tell me when he wanted to motivate me, because clients, in a sense that they are a little bit past their peaks, they are grandmasters, so not that much else to go for when it comes to the titles, right? Possibly a little bit older than myself or even a lot older. So that's what I wanted to get, white pieces against such a guy, but I got black pieces against international master, still rising, younger than me, better than me. Terrible pairing. On top of that, he played basically everything. So, knowing me from the rounds number 4, 5, 6, 7, you would expect me to prepare against everything. But knowing me from the last round, when I did not prepare at all and it worked, I can tell you guys that for that round, I also decided not to spend too much time on preparation, also because the round number 8 was played in the afternoon, this one in the morning. So, you always have to pack your bags and whatnot. So all in all, not that much time for preparation. I decided, let it be. Let's, play a game and that's that. As you can tell also on the screen, as of that moment, I had +5 in terms of rating. I knew that even if I lose the game, I will be on 0 change. So I thought to myself, okay, it's a free roll for me. If I lose, okay, we can imagine that I was not even there in Prague for a week. If I don't lose, anything will be welcomed. So let's see how the game started, because it started with c4, already on move number 1, asking me what am I going to reply with. And thanks to the fact that I have prepared this setup during the round number 7 preparation against one knight f3, I knew that against one c4 I can kind of try to implement it too. So I played c5, I believe once more for the first time in my life against c4, at least in the, let's say, modern days. My opponent opted for knight f3, therefore after knight c6 we immediately went into the position from round number 7 too. In that game, however, my opponent opted for d4. In this game my opponent played knight c3, and now I have the choice to make. Do I go for knight f6 anyway, and do I wait for the d4 to happen? Or do I not want to wait anymore, and since it did not happen, I can play e5. And I was debating what to choose, because before the preparation, before the round number 7, I was kind of preparing both setups, trying to compare which is better and why. And I didn't know if my opponent of this round really, let's say, got inspired by that game because he watched it, or was there any other reason why he went especially into this setup. But I decided, okay, let's just stick to what I've prepared best for the round number 7, and let's see what did the international master prepare against me. So after knight f6 that I chose, instead of going for d4 move, trying to go into the transposition into the round number 7, my opponent chose g3 move, completely changing the trajectory of the game, because now I go for d5, and after takes bishop g2, since the pressure is growing, I'd step back with the knight, and after castle e5, I'm not sure if you got such a visual abilities to compare the positions in games, but we actually got ourselves the accelerated dragon kind of thing with Maroczy bind, simply with the opposite colors. So normally the Maroczy bind comes from white and the accelerated dragon comes from black. In here it was the other way around. It seems like the opponent playing white pieces played accelerated dragon, I chose Maroczy bind, but obviously with a little twist to it because my opponent has one more tempo since he is white. So even though d3, bishop e7 is still very natural, after knight d2 already I have to, let's say, claim what I want to do and why. And if the colors would be switched, I would have, let's say, this one more tempo to think about it. In here, I have no such time. And I was trying to recall what happens usually in the usual accelerated dragon to try to apply it in here into this kind of similar stuff, but I failed. I did not know exactly how those variations go in the accelerated dragon, therefore I was not sure if I can really apply them to this position, because even if I would remember how they go, maybe I shouldn't play the very same way since I have one tempo down, right? One tempo less. So I decided, okay, even though bishop d7 kind of rang a bell, seemed a little bit odd, I would not be able to tell how to then later on play, because I knew that opponent's idea might be to play knight c4, knight d3, knight d5, and I didn't know how to react to it. So I decided, okay, let's just, pretend I know what's coming on. Let's just castle and close my eyes and hope that my opponent will not take there, because around 15 years ago, I believe maybe even exactly in 2011, I played a similar game in the dragon variation, but with the white pieces, in which opponent playing black pieces sacrificed this dragon bishop for the knight on c3 in similar fashion as in here, in order to break my pawn chain and then focus on strategical approach without this dragon bishop, let's say. So in here I felt, okay, it was 15 years ago, a little bit different scenario. I was playing better player and I survived. So maybe in here I will also survive. So not the ideal way, let's say, of making choices when you play against the international master, but this is it, guys. And I have to live with that, and you do too, if you watch me. All right, going further. In here, my opponent chose knight c4, to which, since the pressure is growing on f6, I played... since the pressure is growing on e5, I played f6 to solidify it, and only now my opponent took. And I took it, let's say, with a smile, being curious what happens next. Is this still a prep and I am getting cooked? Or is it just a strategical choice by my opponent and we are here for the middle game battle? Let's see. My opponent in here chose f4, which to me was not the most obvious way of continuing, and I felt like he should have gone for completely other setup, but he was playing still confidently, not like with pre-moves, but rather fast. So I thought, all right, it's still his prep. But when I was thinking about the position, I was really worried that my opponent will simply set up the position like f3, b3, so, everything on the light squares, since the light squared bishop is gone, so there is no problem with it. And then focus simply on the file, on c file, on those weaknesses of mine. Like one knight would go there, the other there, bishop here, rook here, queen here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces attacking my doubled c-pawns that I can protect with 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces. So tremendous amount of force, and I really was like scared how am I going to react to it, because I am completely blocked on the queen side, I am completely blocked in the center. So I knew that if this would be the scenario that would be starting, let's say, to happen, let's say imagine f3 would be the move that my opponent chooses, I would just perhaps play bishop there, and after rook there, already I would be thinking about launching some crazy attack there, because I would be so scared and so hungry of any kind of counterplay. So yeah, pretty scary to me. Thankfully, at least at first I thought so, f4 happened, because when you think about it, it's a logical move, putting pressure to the e5 pawn as usual, as in the past few moves. My opponent did that. Since the pressure is there, I kind of have to take, inviting the bishop into the play with a tempo. So it's not looking good. My opponent have more pieces developed. I have the weaknesses that he has not. What do I have in exchange? Bishop pair? I mean, maybe, but as of now, this one is terrible one. and this one I'm not sure how to use it, right? So not the ideal scenario. On top of that, in here I fought for quite some time. I played bishop e6, you know, trying to develop the piece, maybe ask my opponent does he want to allow the trade on c4, and I was met with queen a4. Hitting the pawn, not allowing me to exchange really, because if I would ever do it, queen would retake, giving me a check. So with tempo additionally, with the c5 being still opened, without my bishop pair, terrible stuff. And apparently also dc makes a lot of sense because it stops my knight from activating ever. This pawn remains weak, this bishop remains weak. So yeah, pretty bad stuff. So obviously the exchange is out of the menu. And if so, how am I going to protect the pawn? Because from the distance, when seeing this position, I felt, okay, I will play here. If any attack happens, queen d7, battery with the bishop, protection of the pawn, seems fine. But after queen a4, queen d7, knight a5, how now to protect the pawn? Is it easy? So not only was I kind of surprised in the opening phase, I was then hit on c6, knowing that the structure will be tough to continue. Then f4 confidently, queen a4 confidently. Now I have basically blundered the pawn, and I'm thinking to myself, 1 week in Prague on my own, chess only, full focus, and what, like after 15 moves I am lost? That's such a disaster, you know? So this was my first instinct, first reaction. It took me quite a few minutes to, you know, shake my head off and think about the possible maybe scenarios to fight. And I'm not sure how it happened, but I found one, to be honest. And I can't find, because what's the problem? The problem is that obviously I'm hit. The knight in here blocks the support through the c file if my rook, either one, would like to help. Bishop d5 does not help because the bishop itself might be exchanged, right? And I cannot run away with the pawn from the attack because I would be hanging the queen. So the only way to protect the pawn, not even directly but indirectly, is knight b5, trying to close down the diagonal. But now knight takes c6 comes, undermining my knight, taking the pawn in the process, threatening to take with the bishop with the check in the process. So I am down a pawn, simply. If I take here, he takes there. I might have some counterplay maybe now with the bishop pair because there were further simplifications and the position has opened up. But is it enough to claim that I have been, you know, fully compensated? I don't think so. So I cannot really do that. What else can I do? If I take here, he takes me there with a check. I take, he takes. Am I now okay with the position? I mean, yes, there are opposite colored bishops and I have some pressure there, so maybe move like this will happen, but yeah, it does not work. E-pawn can move, and also it does not have to move because after that I cannot really take it. And if so, I'm not able to actually get the material back, and if so, I am being a pawn down. Do I have some drawing chances? Yes, perhaps. Do I want to fight for the draw for the next 4 hours without the pawn? Probably not. So practically speaking, also not good. So yeah, at that point, this was the reason why I felt lost at the beginning. But then I found one way to make the variation work better, because after knight b5, knight c6, knight c3, knight e7, I found king f7. Abandoning the knight. I don't want it. I don't want it as of now. Why? Because if I took and he took, he could have done that easily. Nothing is attacked, neither queen nor the pawn nor the king, everything is fine. But if I play king f7, I maintain the pressure, pressure. All of a sudden, leaving this knight there, also the knight itself cannot like jump away that easily. I am fine. I am fine. And it's obviously not the end of the variation, it's just the beginning of it. But once I saw the move, I was like, oh, relieved. Maybe there is some, you know, light in the tunnel. So my opponent is forced to take the queen because there was too much pressure. I can now take the pawn on e2 with a check. King f2 happens, hitting my knight. I take back the queen. And now what happens? Both knights are attacked. As of now, I am not worse materially speaking, so that's fine. If he takes, I take now, since I don't have material problems, I should be able to draw the game, especially since there are opposite colors bishop, especially since there are no more queens on the board, so that should be fine. If the knight attempts to jump away, I can actually just take the bishop, and you know from the analysis of the round number 7, I told you guys this rule that bishop cooperates better with the rooks than the knight, especially in the open position, especially when the pawns are on the opposite sides of the board, and here they are all over the place. So this bishop might get activated somewhat, you know, the target is already there and so on, so on. So I would be happy. So if this does not work, so taking the knight, neither does work jumping away with the knight. Maybe protecting the knight works. So bishop d6 it is. Indeed, it is a very good choice of my opponent. But now I have knight d4 jumping away with my knight. And there are no good, let's say, discoveries with this knight. So my opponent simply takes the pawn on c5. I go back with the knight hitting the bishop. Bishop goes away to a3 to protect both the pawn and the knight and be protected, let's say, itself. But now I have a little bit grasp of the activity with bishop b5. And now look how the dynamic of the position changed. From the beginning of the game I was under pressure, I was under the impression too that I'm being outplayed, outprepped, out everything. Then I got, you know, the wind, let's say, I got the opportunity to fight, I took it. And even though I am a pawn down, everything is switched. Like I am the one hitting the pawn, I am the one hitting the knight. My opponent has to prove to me that this pawn is worth it. But if you would like to attempt to, you know, just protect it, okay, I can just attack it, you know. If he tries to play like that, in order for me to not be able to play there because of the fork and not be able to play there because of the knight d6 check to closing the connection between the bishop and the rook, I can now play king g6. If I am hit, just jump away with the rook. I was initially thinking about either bishop a6 or a6 itself too. Yes, I am still a pawn down, but maybe, just maybe, I will be able to block it, although d4 might be happening. But, you know, I was thinking about this position from the very far away. So I guess if rook d1 would have happened, rook d8, knight f5, king g6, knight d6, you know, I had the time. So maybe bishop c6 to block it like that. All in all, what I want to say is that I was okay with this type of scenario. I don't have to prove anything. Now it's opponent time to prove that he can beat me with this additional pawn, even though the bishops are opposite and so on. So I was fine. At that very moment, therefore, I guess for those reasons too, my opponent fought in here for a longer period of time. And indeed, he did not protect the pawn. He played knight f5, trying to open up the pressure to the rook, set up the fork, and allow me, or rather I should say invite me to take the pawn. It's the only move that I can actually make in here, so I did just that. The point is that if my rook is taken, I can now simply take back the bishop with the king. I guess I wanted to do that to avoid the check and to protect the pawn and keep the knight active and so on, because I'm hitting both here and there. If the rook wants to attack my knight, I can take his knight and protect mine. If he wants to go away with the knight, okay, I believe this position should leave me with no problems to draw. And there are no other choices, to be honest, so I would be fine with that. Therefore, after bishop takes d3 with the double attack, instead of taking my, let's say, free exchange, he gave me a check on d6, and now I had the decision to make where do I go to with the king, either to g6 or g8. At first, my instinct told me that I should go to g6 to avoid any kind of, I don't know, checkmates on the 8th rank, right? Because since this pawn, since this knight covers the f7 square and my pawns are covering the others, some back rank weakness checkmate might happen. But obviously, I told myself just right after that, don't be afraid of ghosts, calculate it till the end. Chess is a concrete game, so you cannot, at the end of this nearly 10 moves long, very direct, very, let's say, concrete variation, all of a sudden go into the mode of no calculation, just following some, you know, rules that, okay, king has to be active in the endgame, right? Because What I later realized is that even though my bishop seems like an active one, this knight limits it quite nicely, and having this g6 square for it might be somewhat useful. So I decided to indeed not be afraid of ghosts. I went to g8. My opponent attacked my knight, after which move I had to play knight g5, and I did just that. The point is that if I would have gone to any other square, obviously in here the problem is clear. Other than that, I don't have many routes, maybe knight c7, but then rook will harass my knight even more. I don't have the follow-up, the defense, the defense, the defense. My knight might get stuck here or there. Knight a6, bishop is blocked, rook c3 has to go there. All of a sudden, all white pieces are coordinated and active, mine are not. So this is the problem I knew that I might have encountered. Therefore, this king g8 helped. And on top of that, after this, I had to go there because I knew that I will have the reroute through f7 with the hopes of either exchanging the knights, therefore exchanging the material and making my problems lesser, let's say, or if not, the knight might jump away, then I will have good outpost, good coordination, and so on. Not like the knight is there, the bishop is here. Okay, concrete stuff. After knight d5, my opponent invited one more piece into the game. I played bishop g6 as expected, h4 to harass my knight. I go back to f7, suggesting a trade. If the knight jumps away, it has no good discoveries, so the knight jumps back, my rook goes out, everything is fine. Therefore, my opponent decided to exchange on f7, after which I obviously take with the rook and play bishop e7. Interesting decision, saying that, okay, I got lucky, I mimic me, and I did not lose the game during the opening or middle game phase, but now, even though the bishops are opposite colored, white will be pushing for a win due to the fact that he has more activity and my rook is stuck. I decided, okay, it's not that bad as it seems. All of a sudden, obviously, I need to think, how can I regroup? How can I actually play this game the most precise way to draw effortlessly? I mean, effortlessly is obviously not a good word in here, but still, this was my goal. So I decided, okay, let's start with the bishop. Let's go to f5 to stop rook d7 from happening. Rook attacked my bishop, so I pushed it to g4. At the same time, stopping white pawns, perhaps preparing h5 with some breathing space to my king and so on. Rook a5 with the attack to the pawn of mine. I think that now I have made a very good choice of playing rook b8, trying to say ni for ni, and if not, I will play rook b7. So instead of being really passive there on an a8 under some pins to the rook 2, now I will be able to protect the pawn from the side, also hitting the bishop so my rook can get out. I am getting more and more coordinated. Also with the control over the 7th rank, I felt like my king will never ever be in pressure and trouble anymore because it can go there and there, this pawn is protected and so on, so I'm fine. The check was given anyway, once, twice, and now the opponent had the decision what to do. I believe even at that point he should have gone for maybe rook a8 scenario, because in here the idea of mine would be to just simply give up the pawn and start giving checks. And after check, here, check, here, check. Wait, where now? Yeah, this is the problem. This is the practical problem. Check, 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 check. And then if here, then here. If, and I'm getting this pawn, so here. Was there a checkmate like here? No, it's not, there is no checkmate because I was thinking like maybe there, some ladder checkmate or whatever, but yeah, it would not work because the rook is pinned. But you get my idea that white was supposed to play into this kind of line objectively, at least that's what the engine suggests, but practically, do you really want to allow black so much counterplay for the pawn? It's not just a pawn, let's clarify that, it's a very important one, allowing white to have two connected outside passers and so on, but it might be a little bit risky, but maybe this is the risk that you have to take to win such endgame, right? So kind of unexpectedly a critical moment for my opponent. After he gave a check and I went away, he played king e3. Now rook a8 would not be so powerful because after this and that I might have indeed some checkmate patterns because my king has escaped. Taking the pawn would not pin the rook, therefore my rook can try to enter the game. And I will spoil it to you guys a little bit, but there are some checkmate patterns that include only king, pawn, bishop and the rook that I was kind of hoping to get also later on in the game. Therefore my rook cannot be taken. Therefore the check will be met with simply me jumping, going away and still threatening with that. So obviously this is not something I've calculated till the end, but once more, it was something that my opponent had to kind of take into account when making his decision at this point. For that reason, I believe he did not play rook a8 as of now. He played king e3, stopping my rook from being and getting active. I chose bishop e6. At this point, I believe rook a8 would be once more on point. After that one, I've prepared bishop c4 with the rook d3 check follow-up, assuming that once the king goes back, I can start checking him there, so either cutting him away later on the second rank or getting after that pawn or that one. And if that would not be the case because the king would go up, once more, I will happily invite it there, right? Because if I remember after this, this and that, there is one more checkmate pattern. Oh no, it was not working, yeah. Because I wanted to say here, here and checkmate, but king g4 is there. But h5 here, here, then there and there. Yeah, I mean, it's still tricky and risky for white, to be honest. And objectively, I'm fine, apparently. So yeah, not that easy. For those reasons, after bishop e6, rook a8 still did not happen. King f4 happened, though, let's say, voluntarily. And I was like, okay, my opponent is trying to win so much that he will trap himself into the checkmate pattern, so I will happily do that. I played h5, you know, setting up a little trap here and there. Rook e8 attacking the bishop, bishop c4, rook e4, bishop e3, rook e3, rook d5. Now the checkmate, guys, is on the menu. On top of that, we have now just achieved the 40th move, so even though we were playing with little time, now we got all the time back, right? So we were fine with that, we were happy with that. And yeah, how is white going to approach this? How is white going to push it further? Because once I got h5, once I got the rook to the 5th rank, once I got the bishop to this diagonal, I am more and more happy and prepared to play a6. I am more and more inclined to seek some counterplay on the opponent's king due to these checkmate patterns that we referred to and thought about. So I felt more and more confident, like inside, like objectively, but emotions, guys, wow, it was through the roof. I was trembling, I was shaking, because the feeling that I got during the move number 10 and 15 when I was hit on c6, then the pawn was nearly lost, but I managed to not lose it. Like I was playing constantly, like I was, trying to catch a rabbit, like running, not knowing what's coming next and so on. So it was really stressful and I was shaking. And so this time control and additional time really helped me out in here. On top of that, I believe I have already suggested a draw to my opponent somewhere around this point or maybe a little bit earlier. My opponent refused to do that, so I knew that because of the nature of the position, he can try to win against me for the next 50 or even more moves, because why not? Opposite colored bishops may be drawish, but we can play on. So even though I knew what was behind me and I knew that this was the, I guess, hardest part, no one said that this one in front of me will be easy one. It can still be hard, it will still be hard, maybe not as hard, but still challenging. Okay, enough of talking. What happened? Obviously my opponent did not blunder the checkmate, he went away. I decided to play a move like this with some trick. He attacked my bishop and after bishop d3 went away further to e8. Now I felt, okay, it's the time to play a6, solidify the pawn. He chose a4, I chose rook b to d7. Now everything is protected, I felt confident about it. bishop b6, and already as of now I need to decide, do I or do I not want to take on a5. I didn't know, to be honest, and I believe that unfortunately in here I spent, if not most, then a lot of my time that I got after the time control. And I went simply by the rule that if unsure, let's just leave things as they are, not change them, because you might misevaluate something or misunderstood, because I didn't know if that after takes bishop c2 was, you know, tempting, trying to get the bishop, but after rook a8 takes, this is a passed pawn. Do I want to give him the passed pawn already? I didn't know, so I decided, okay, I won't play it. I just played bishop f1. And during the game, if you ask me what is the difference between bishop f1 and c4 and c2 and there, I might have been able to tell you. Now I don't know. All I see, if I want to, you know, take the evaluation from the engine, is that it's 0.00. All I have in my mind is the emotion of playing, not the concrete variations. So I don't know, bishop f1 after 10 or 15 minutes thought process. I can't remember why exactly. Let's continue though. My opponent himself took on d5, which I felt like it's an okay scenario for me because I am controlling the b5 square, so I am in no danger of facing the passed pawn. I am in control of this pawn breakthrough. My opponent played for it anyway. He chose rook b8, I chose rook d3, trying to set up once more some, if not checkmates, then at least check patterns. Bishop e3, trying to block the third rank. Rook a3 attacking the pawn, a5, and I was like, okay, now I cover everything. Really, it cannot be that bad. The draw is just behind the corner, nothing can happen. If I would have changed my mindset at least slightly, maybe I would evaluate properly move like rook b3 with the hopes of then playing bishop b5, because how is white supposed to protect the pawn? Not that easy. Not that easy. If you would play a move like this, very bad one, after that and that and that, I'm hitting there and creating checkmate pattern. If he does not play there, I mean, some problems are there, right? So I could have actually at this point take over the initiative and make use of the fact that this pawn is backwards pawn and I can attack it. But I didn't think that way, unfortunately. And I played rook a1 with drawing chances in mind, trying to go down with the rook so that if the king enters the game, as my opponent did, I can cut it away. After bishop f4 that happened, I gave a check, king e3, rook d5, so I kind of switched the defense of the b5 square as of now. Only after king f2, bishop e3, I wanted to, bishop e4, I wanted to go to d3. So rook b6, bishop d3, now bishop d6, bishop b5, bishop c5. I had to include rook b5 possibility into my calculations because I won similar fashion, similar game lasting nearly 100 moves in the Road to FIDE Masters series episode number 5 or 6 maybe. So even though it was 1.5 years back, it was kind of fresh in my mind. So I wanted to include that, but in the end I knew that I do not have to be scared of it, because if it happens, my rook is easily covering the pawn on the white square of promotion, so I can even block the king with the king and I am more than fine in here. So thankfully it does not work. My opponent, since this setup does not allow him to achieve much, went for bishop f8, trying to get to my king side pawns. In here I nearly kind of blundered because I played rook d2 check with the idea of, after king e1, giving a check once more, king d1, playing rook e6, thinking, okay, he takes, I take, he takes, draw offer, okay, let's go home. But I realized, wait, he does not have to take me. He can play bishop takes g7. I was like, oh my god, now I don't want to exchange the rooks because this is the passer that I was avoiding all the time. If I then go to it with the king, there might be another passer, and practically And objectively, I am actually even losing this game, I believe, when I checked this later on and I was analyzing this position. So I cannot do it. I was nearly at that stage, but after the check on d2, thanks to the fact that the king went down, I said, okay, let's just go back to the 7th rank. The king was kicked out anyway. Let's not change, let's say, the dynamic of the position. Only after my opponent chose bishop d6, closing my rook behind the game, let's say, I decided, okay, since this pawn was weak one and attacked, let's change the game. g5. I am now on the offensive side. I am pushing the pawns. I am going after the passed pawn, right? So that's that. My opponent did not take because it would be practically not the good decision. He played bishop c5. I took. He took back. I played king g4, allowed him to take there, took him there, and I felt okay. Now from the 98% drawing chances, we got ourselves to 99. I really should not lose the game. And I'm not really sure if I offered a draw one more time or not, to be honest, because savoir vivre would mean that you wait. Once one draw offer was declined, you just wait for the opponent to suggest the other. So I'm not so sure was this also in the case for me, or was I too impatient and I offered a draw for the second time? I hope and believe not. Nevertheless, obviously, the game continued because my opponent was nowhere close to proposing a draw, right? He played rook g6, cutting away my king. I decided that on the light square I should be fine, so I played king h3 after bishop d6, h4. So the pawn protects the dark square, the king is fine and whatnot. My opponent played king d2. I decided, okay, king is stuck actually without any move. Pawn 2, this bishop goes nowhere because why? I need to play with my rook. I played rook f7, he played there, rook f1, bishop e5, and I was close to making some move related to the b4 pawn. I don't know, like rook b1 or something maybe. But then it struck me, this chance to draw the game on the spot with tasty motive, stalemate motive, because I had in mind that with this king being blocked, everything, if I will give up somehow the pieces, it will be a draw. And please note that I am trembling and shaking from the move number 40. I told you about it. Like I was shaking through 15. So 50 moves I'm shaking. We are playing over 5 hours now. Yes, over? Nearly 5 hours. Okay, let's put it that way. One of the last 2 games on the playing hall, 10 people at least around me, waiting for the closing ceremony, waiting to go home to their homes, cities and countries, looking at this endgame that my opponent is trying to, win, and I found the line. And the fact that so many people were watching was really stressing me out, because I know that I can calculate precisely, quickly, short variations, but this one, even though I've calculated, I had to check it like 5 times because it was so crazy. Guys, in here, I chose a crazy route to a draw. I gave a check, and after king went away to protect the bishop, I gave a check. With the rook, to not protected square. Why? Let's see. He takes. I give a check with the bishop. Why? Because if he takes both my pieces, it's a stalemate and we go home. Finally. Oh, that's that. Rook e4. Amazing move. I am so proud of it, really. And the point is that he cannot refuse it. If he refuses it and he goes like that to protect the bishop, I take the pawn. If he protects the pawn, I take the bishop, right? So either way, he loses material, and he, I guess, does not want to do it. So he takes. Bishop d3, only now he can go away, and of course he did, because this would end the game on the spot. Thanks to the skewer, I will be getting the rook if the king goes away. He went away to d4, I took the rook, and now b5. Pawn breakthrough, trying to create a passer. I had to also include that. Once you sacrifice all the material, remember to think about what happens if opponent will not take it, simply, right? But I had it all calculated. I took the pawn, a6 happened. I played bishop e8, trying to stop it like that. After a7, bishop c6, my opponent took the c6 square away from me, so I went to h5. If not there, then there. I will get there eventually, you know. a7, bishop f3. My opponent played, what did he play? Bishop f6, king g4, and we basically finally like shake heads, shake hands, and redrew the game. I mean, amazing emotional stuff to finish off the tournament. Funny part about it is that when I will show you the review, you will not believe me, but I will do that. I hope that chess.com review is somewhat similar to the Lichess one, because look at this, guys. 96 to 96, at no point ever was I worse at all. How did it happen, right? I mean, it happened in a sense that what I feared the most in the opening, what I feared the most later on in the middle game when I was hit on the c6 pawn, I was fine because of the variations I then found. So it was lucky of me to actually have them, because I was not preparing them beforehand. I was only finding them afterwards, after the problems. But objectively, I was never in danger of losing the game. This was the funniest part of all after I checked the game, because I had one inaccuracy, I believe, in the whole game, and I felt like I played it terribly. So yeah, mixed up emotions, but obviously I will take such a draw, a long fight with a better player with black pieces. Yeah, pretty nice feeling, nice way to finish off the tournament. And yeah, let's see how the tournament as a whole turned out to be. Because guys, as you can tell, I gained the rating. As I told you at the beginning of this analysis, if I lost, I would not be losing the rating. I would be on 0-0, right? So any half a point more meant 10 rating points more. So I was fighting for my rating. So I got it. I have plus 10. So in the end, it was results wise, I guess, okay to go to Prague on my own for a week to fight for my chess goals. It was a very valuable experience to me, you know, this chess marathon of playing 2 tournaments basically in a row, strong ones with up and downs, plenty of opening work to it. So to finish both off as a whole on plus rating meant a lot to me, really. Because in Krakow I lost 2 rating points. In here I got more than that, so I was very pleased with that. And what can I tell you guys? Exhausting time. I gave myself a shot at the FIDE Master title, right? Because you did not see such activity ever on this channel, I guess. 3 tournaments in a row, like, I don't know, 27 episodes maybe within like a month or so. So pretty big number of episodes that came out. I'm getting closer and closer, but still not yet there. And the problem was that I knew that this December-January moment will be the only moment in the first half of the 2026 year for me to fight for my goal, because, you know, after I got back from Prague, reality kicked in. A guy like me has to work, right? I am a teacher, I am a coach, I am an instructor. I need to go to schools, kindergartens, I need to do my lessons with my beloved individual students. So the work it is as of now. I am coaching, I am arbitrating too, but I am not playing as much. So in my dreams, you know, I would have been celebrating as of now 2300 rating point mark, FIDE Master title and so on, but reality is different. I'm getting closer but not yet there. Therefore, no big celebrations today and not tomorrow either. Still some work to be done. As of now, we have to delay the celebrations for at least a few more months, and yeah, I will continue to work on my chess, because during October and November I was actually working hard, so a little bit time off before the tournaments maybe even was an okay thing to have, to you know, be more relaxed and fresh to play, especially since it was a marathon. Now I have far too much time to chill from tournaments, therefore I hope to implement some training strategy too, so that during future tournaments I will be getting there stronger, better prepared, in the better mood, in the better physicality too, because one takeaway from those two tournaments is that physically my body was also not on a good level, let's say, not well prepared. So chess is one thing, mental stuff is second thing, physical stuff is the third one, not less important by any means. So yeah, I learned a few lessons. I got some work done in the process. I hope that during that process I also was able to entertain you guys. If so, thank you all for being here on the channel, for supporting my journey. I need to tell you that there will be some break from videos since I am not playing. However, tomorrow there is a 2 years anniversary of the channel, of the Road to the Master series, of all the good stuff. So tomorrow, summary of the YouTube, of the coaching career, playing career, all the good stuff. So if you want to hear me talking about it in more details, please join me tomorrow. I invite you to it. As for this game, as for this tournament, that's that. Thank you very much for watching the episodes, and we'll see each other tomorrow, and then we'll see. Thank you. Bye bye.